Hello and welcome back to awtoolbox.com. My name's Glenn Keller, and in this video we are wrapping up this overview of workflows. Now, we haven't touched on every single little detail in workflows. There are more topics that you may want to take a look at. Pay attention to our AW Toolbox channel on YouTube as well as our blog for additional tips and tricks. We will go through some of the out-of-the-box workflows, and then get into just nuances beyond the scope of just your basic user training. To begin with, though, in this video, we're kind of talking about additional topics. So we've seen everything from submitting to a workflow, aborting a workflow, claiming tasks, looking at resource pools. And in here, I want to talk about a topic in this video that we all encounter, and it's called Workflow Surrogates. So essentially, we have the concept of being able to go out of office and then assigning somebody as your surrogate so that they see the tasks that are assigned to you and can claim those tasks. Now, just take note that if you're utilizing resource pools or dynamic participants primarily in your workflows and you're not direct assigning to somebody specifically, then you may not have the need for surrogate users, as people claim from the group inbox at that point. And there is no need to direct individual tasks out to somebody. But we all have workflows that are assigned to a specific individual at a specific point, and this use case is more for that scenario. To begin with, a workflow surrogate, if you come into your inbox, you can see there's surrogate tasks up here. So surrogate tasks is one of the inboxes. It essentially gives you a view for which you are the surrogate. So notice they'll be displayed here and require your attention if you are the surrogate for that user. So in here, I am user 01 and I'm about to go on vacation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just kind of mimic the situation where I need to set somebody else up as my surrogate user. In this environment, we only have one additional account at the moment, and that is our admin 01 account. So I'm going to come into my profile, which is in the top right corner, choose Manage Profile. And then once this pops up, you can see I see a lot of information about who I am. I could add a profile picture that shows up. I could go in and take a look at other attributes like my default group and role. However, forwarding tasks out of office is right here, and then surrogates are right here. And these are two completely different things. So surrogate tasks are going to be workflows, and forwarding tasks is going to be workflows, but the way they interact is going to be a little different. So let's just go ahead and keep to the vibe. I'm going to come down in here and I'm going to look at surrogate users. So it'll also tell me who I'm a surrogate for, as well as any resource pool subscriptions that I am assigned to. We saw in the previous video that the resource pool, as long as I'm in the group and role, I get it in my team inbox, but we can talk more about adding specific resource pools that you may want to make sure that you have access to. For surrogates, though, I'm just going to go ahead and add a surrogate. I'm about to go out of the office, and I'm going to go out of the office from today at midnight to Monday at 6 o'clock. So in the morning at 6 o'clock on Monday, I'll be coming back around my normal time, and I want the tasks to stop going to somebody else at that point. So I'm going to add a surrogate, and I'm going to go ahead and pick my admin 01. That's going to be my surrogate. Could be another user. Once I do that, I'm going to hit add. Now I could add multiple surrogates here, and if I do, then multiple people will see that. I'm just going to go ahead and click add for now, and you'll see the admin user pops up. So if I log in as the admin user, you'll see that the admin user will essentially be a surrogate for myself. So I'm going to come in here and mimic a workflow real quick. Just get a task sitting in my inbox now that it is within the time of that surrogate task. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, let's go ahead and submit. We've been working with this one object. We can see that it has been through multiple workflows and it's got right now it's in a process. So if I go to my inbox, you'll see that I don't have any tasks in my inbox. If I go to team, I don't have any. And if I go to tracking, I have one. So in this case, I have a task sitting here that's came to me. And if I go into workflow, I can see who this is currently assigned to. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and abort the workflow. That way I can submit to manage this process and take a look at surrogates. Again, if you have a fresh object, you can just use that fresh object if it's not in the workflow. So abort to show surrogate. Hit abort. And now that object will be back, and we've been kind of fiddling with that object a little bit in our use cases. So you can see this object is no longer in a process. If I scroll over, no more little icon. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and submit this in to a workflow that I can assign myself to, which will mimic getting a task. So I'm going to say manage, submit to workflow. And then I'm going to go to my workflow. And I'm just going to use a very simple one in this case, the requirement sign-off workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and set the assignments here. I'm going to set the assignment for the one required role, DBA, and an additional reviewer. So in the DBA role, I'm just going to hard set the DBA resource pool. Hit assign, and there we go. So at that point, the resource pool is assigned, but I'm also going to add myself as an additional reviewer here if I'm allowed to. But notice in here, I have all of the different groups and roles and people. I'm just going to go ahead and say user 01. And you can see engineering designer is the group and role, and I'm going to assign them as an additional reviewer. And at that point, I can go back to the workflow, and you can see I've got pretty much everything ready. I'm going to go ahead and hit submit here. And when it submits, I'm going to go into my inbox. So you can see I have a new inbox item. And that new task has been assigned to me. So it is in my workflow. If I go to surrogate tasks, notice I don't have any. So now I'm going to go ahead and log out and log in as that surrogate user. So I did have one in my tasks. I'm going to go to admin 01, admin 01, and just log in real quick and we'll take a look. If you get this pop-up, this is the Product Excellence program. You can read a little bit more about it, but essentially Siemens is just trying to get some information about what you install. If you are under STIG, then you need to decline this option. Otherwise, it's no harm, no foul. They're not going to reach into your data. I'm just going to hit decline for the moment. So in here, if I go into my inbox, you can see that I am in the engineering group at the moment, designer role. And if I go into surrogate tasks, notice that I see that task. So the key point here is that the user who had originally set me up as a surrogate can also see that task. So I'm not stealing it. They're still aware of what is happening to it. And I can interact with it. But at this point, if I select it, I can see the task. And just like anything else, I'm going to want to claim that task. So in here, if I start working with it, that other user may have a couple of hours when they're not doing anything on their vacation and may log in to try and achieve a couple of tasks. And I don't want them to fall into that where I'm working on it and they are working on it. So I could assign it and perform it if I had the permissions, but at the moment, notice I can't do anything on the overview. So I'm just going to come in here. I can view the reviewers if I wanted to, or the assignments, so I can see who's responsible. And then I could just come into the top, hit manage, and then notice I can stand in. So when you're doing surrogate tasks, it's kind of like claiming a task, but you're standing in for that person so that it can record it. So I'm going to hit stand in, and then you'll notice that it adds the active surrogate to the bottom of the list. Now, when I come back over to the overview, you'll see that the action provides me some information that I can achieve. So if I'm standing in on it, you'll see that there's an active surrogate at the bottom here. and that surrogate can perform the task. If you come back into the Manage button, now you can see you get a lot more information here because you are now the owner of this. But notice if that person comes back, maybe I'm not done with the task, I had just stood in for them, I can always release the task to give it back to them so that they can work with it. Now for them, if they were to log in and take a look at this task, so let me log out of here and log in as that user. We saw we had the task to begin with. Now I'll go in as user 01. And in here, I can see I get a new task. And if I look at the task, you can see if I select it, it'll open up and you can see that the admin 01 is the active surrogate down here in the page. So I know that somebody else has stood in for me on this one. And I guess I could approve or reject it at that point, but I don't want to. I want to contact them and let them know. So at that point, you can go in and perform the task. Let me go ahead and log out real quick. Log in as admin 01. And then when it logs in, I'll just go ahead and go to my inbox. And notice that that task still is not in my tasks. It's only in my surrogate tasks. I have stood in for the other user, and I'm going to go ahead and achieve that task. So I could put comments in or do something, but I'm just going to go ahead and hit approve. And you can see that that's now done. Now, if I were to go in as that user, maybe the following Monday when they get back, and take a look at that data, you should be able to tell who performed the task in your absence. So I'm going to say user 01, user 01. And then when I come back in here, I'll look for that object. So I'm going to come into my Explorer. And then in here, it'll expand out and I can see the object. So first of all, if I scroll through, notice that the last modifying user was admin 01. So I'm still the owner, but I can see who had done it. If I go into Workflow up at the top, then in the top part here, you can see that admin 01 approved the sign off at that step. So surrogates provide the ability for you to see the tasks that somebody gets during their outage when they're out of the office or whatever, but they still see the workflow task as well, and you can stand in for them or release it back to them. So Workflow Surrogates is a really good tool if you work in workflows and have people come in and out. But again, if you have that resource pool set, then only the members of that group that are active at any one point are going to claim it, and you can skip over the whole surrogate workflow thing as long as you don't direct assign workflows to somebody. Now let's take a look at coming in and removing the surrogate. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go into my profile, and then I can see my surrogate. I'm going to select, and then notice I can say remove surrogate. So I'm just going to say remove surrogate, and then that person's gone. And any new tasks are going to come just directly to me, and they're not going to see it. Now, out of office is a little bit different. So this is forwarding tasks. Instead of me seeing the task in the inbox, the tasks are going to get forwarded to somebody else. So if I were to do that, let's just go ahead and come in here and choose edit. And then at this point, you'll notice that everything that I can modify is basically set here. I don't have out of office turned to yes in this case, so I'm going to have to flip that out of office toggle. And then I'll be able to say who my inbox delegate is, who's going to be able to do this task, and then when they're going to do that. So if they figure out what they're going to, or who you are going to delegate this to, notice it's not a table like before. So we're just going to come all the way back up to the top here, and we're going to say manage, and then, or new, and then edit. And if you look through all this, the big one is going to be share. Took me a minute to find it. Forward tasks out of office is what I want to do. So I'm going to say forward tasks. I'm going to say my start date. So I'm going to say from yesterday, I forgot to put it in maybe, and then through Monday. All right, so who my recipient is going to be another user. I'm just going to give it to that same admin. We saw that they don't have the task, they completed it. So I'm going to go ahead and just say forward. And at this point, you'll see that all of my inbox items are now going to forward to out of office to admin 01. So I'm going to go ahead and set up our scenario again. I'm user 01 at the moment. I do have a delegate for this time frame. I have my bolt assembly. I could create a new object altogether if I wanted to, but this one is no longer in a workflow, and it has, or actually it is in a process. So in here, I'm going to go in and just create a new object for this use case. So I'm going to say new, add, and then in here, I'm going to just create a new part. And I'm going to call this screw. Add. And then in there, I can see that the new part is in here. I'm just going to go ahead and come up and say manage, submit to workflow. Say all. And in this case, I'm going to do the ABC workflow that we had done before. It gives us multiple selections. Don't have to. I could use the other one, but if I come in, I'm going to set the initiate workflow to me. So that's what's supposed to come back to me. So I'm not going to pick anything. Then I'm going to pick review task. And the person that's going to do the review task, I'm going to select required down at the bottom. And then I'm going to say user 01, because the goal of this is to show how that redirects. And then once I get user 01 in here, I can just pick that user from the list. I need to hit search, pick that user, and then hit assign. And so at this point, the first two are going to get sent to myself, and I'm going to hit submit. So now I'm kind of submitting a workflow to myself to prove a point here, but you can see it's in a workflow now. I can hover over and see that. And then if I go to the workflow itself, you can see that it's actually assigned to admin 01 out of the get-go. So this is a little bit different in the fact that it's not just coming to me and then somebody can stand in for me. It's just going to the admin 01. So if I go to inbox here, notice that my tasks are empty. If I go to team tasks, they're empty. I have the ability to see it in the tracking, but only because I submitted it. If I hadn't submitted it, then that would be blank as well. And then if I go to surrogate tasks, notice nothing's there. So the way that out of office works with this forwarding of tasks is basically you are no longer responsible for the tasks in any way, shape, or form during that window. The person that you set as out of office is now going to be responsible for that task during that window, and you're not going to see what tasks hit your inbox in that amount of time. So I can see as the admin 01 user, if I come in, it is now my task as admin 01. I don't have anything else related to that task in tracking or anything along those lines. So surrogates allow you to see the tasks that you have submitted in the system or have been assigned to you, and then you can see kind of how people interact with it, or then you can actually perform those tasks if they haven't stood in for you. Whereas out of office makes it as if you don't exist for a little while and all the tasks get routed over to the new individual. Either method is a perfectly viable method in the environment. It's really up to your organization how you want to handle it. I will say that the resource pools you have to set up either way, and if you do that correctly, a lot of this is kind of a moot point. You don't have to, because if you're out, you're not going to claim those tasks. We hope you enjoyed this little overview on surrogate workflows, surrogate users in a workflow, as well as out of office. Hopefully that it gives you a little bit of information to dive deep, but definitely check out the links in the bottom of the course so that we can give you as much information to educate you on your decision as you go forward.